In this presentation, I'm going to go over the pronouns. The next one we want to look at is autos. Autos is going to be, it's used two different ways. In the nominative forms, autos, aute, auto, or autai, autoi, autai, auta, it's intensive. So I personally, ego aute, as a woman, I personally saw him come through the door, or he himself arrived on time, or with the children, something like that. So you want to emphasize the subject, you use autos or autoi. In the oblique cases, however, that is the non-nominative cases, then it is just your simple him, her, it, it's, to him, etc. So it's just your basic pronoun, oblique case pronoun. And now to decline it, you can treat it as some kind of adjective out with os, omicron, and eta declension adjective. Autos, aute, auto, endings accordingly. And you can see how that works. So first, let's start with the article. We'll remember our forms of the article, something you learned already at the very beginning, but the article can be used as a pronoun. And Master Nardi points this out, that we call this the pronominal use of the article. So in Attic, the articles ha, he, and ta, which were originally demonstrative pronouns, and that's why they sort of fall into this category, they can be used then to refer as a pronoun for each of the genders. So usually you can see this happening when it's preceding the particles men and de, and then when they're usually paired. So you can get the one or the other, some, and others. The examples he gives here are tous men apoktenusi, tous de agnusi. So they killed some and they carried off others. Hai men menusi, hai de fugusi. So these women are staying, but the others are fleeing. Or some women are staying, others are fleeing. Preceding de alone, without men, in this use then the article usually marks a change in the grammatical subject. So the examples he gives here, ton poetein buliuestai petamen hod etele. So they were urging the poet to take counsel, hod etele, but he was not willing to do so. We've changed the subject here. Okay. Now, other demonstratives, which we call deictics, these are demonstrative pronouns are the ones that are pointing at something. And so they this or that, these or those, this being what's near me, that which is over there. Those are the demonstratives that we're talking about. So the group we are going to be looking at then are hode, hutos, and ekenos. So let's first get to look at hode. So hode is very easy to decline. We're basically taking the article ha, he, ta, and we're putting de onto it. So you can see how that was a development out of the use of ha with the particle de separately. And you can see how this then becomes that we used to change the subject. Now we can use it as a pointer. So hode, and notice it is declined in the same way that the article is declined, and all we're doing is just putting de onto it. Now, our other demonstrative pronoun that means this that's nearby is hutas, haute, and tuta. And one way to remember this is to think of the masculine and neuter as adding toot to the article and the feminine as adding tout to the article in the oblique cases. So we have the nominative hutas, haute, tuta, but then in the oblique cases, you're adding, basically what's happening is you're adding toot or tout to the article. So here we can see it's the masculine is toot, tu, neuter, tu, but then the feminine tautes. So you can see there it's tu, that's the article. Tout, taste is the article. Tu, that's the article. So yes, you're adding toot or tout to the article, depending on whether it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. The nominative, again, in the oblique cases. So in the nominatives, you're not doing that. So it's nominative plural is hutoi, hautai, tauta. So the neuter has a weird, goes to the tout here. And that probably has to do with the fact that the sound of the tout with the alpha sounds better than the tuta. Doesn't sound so good. So, all right, now, of course, the exception is the genitive, where all three have the same. Two-tone, two-tone, two-tone. So even the feminine has two-tone. So yeah, so that would be one way of, you could just memorize the chart, or you could think about how, yeah, this is really tu-tu, tautes, tu-tu. Okay, so this is this. Okay, so let's think about how these thises relate to each other. So hutas, haute, tuta, this, the nearer, is something that usually indicates something that's pretty close to the speaker, that something that is here beside me. So this apple or this pomodoro is near me, whereas that one is over by you or by that other third person over there. So this is this. However, hode would be something even closer. So hode is right here in front of the speaker, right beside the speaker, whereas hutas would be something next down, close but not as close as hode. And then when it comes to contrasted with ekenos, which we'll look at in a second, meaning that over there, then hutas means the latter versus the former. So ekenos being the former, the further away, the thing mentioned first, whereas hutas means the latter because it was mentioned last. It's the closest thing to what has just been said. Okay? And similarly with hode, then hutas refers to what has gone before. So in the foregoing situation, the guy before hode is the coming situation. So hutas is the foregoing mentioned person. Hode would be the following mentioned person. Now, and then there's some weirdnesses about the conjugation or the declension that we need to be careful about. And this is to do with, we don't want to mix up the feminines, right? So the breathing is very important. So it's aute. Autai is our pronoun. That's the intensive pronoun. Herself, themselves, with the smooth breathing. And the rough breathing, haute, hautais, these women, or this woman, right? So the matter of the breathing and the accent, right? So you notice that the breathing is rough here, rough breathing, and cute on the penult. Here it's rough breathing and circumflex on the penult, whereas the pronoun, the intensive pronoun, she, herself, or they, themselves, it's a smooth breathing and then acute on the ultima, right? So that's very important to keep straight. Okay, now let's move on to ekenos. So ekenos is just as an adjective. So ekenos, ekene, ekeno. Those are the three genders, and they decline just like an omicron eta adjective. So ekenos, ekene, ekeno, ekenu, ekenes, ekenu, ekeno, ekene, ekeno, ekenoi, ekenon, ekenen, ekeno, ekenoi, ekenai, ekena, etc. Right? And so there's nothing particularly peculiar about this. They decline pretty straightforwardly. Just have to remember, of course, the long short rule when it comes to the accent. If it's ekane plus os, then it's going to be circumflex, or ekeno circumflex, but with the feminine predominantly going to be acute on the penult, except of course in the plural where that ending is short, and so it'll be a circumflex. Okay. Now, how do we use these when we're referring? We actually are saying this day or this woman or that man. How do we use them? So the demonstrative is always used with the article. So it's like the day, this one, the man, that one. So they always use the article in prose, the article with the demonstrative. So here we have tau te hemera. And notice, though it, in English it looks attributive, the position that the demonstrative takes is predicative. Mainly because it's just another article, really, right? So it's tau te hemera, on this day, right? Hoi nautai ekenoi, those sailors. So it's the sailors, those ones. Or ekenoi hoi nautai. So notice it's in the predicative position. No article with it. In other words, it doesn't stand in between the article and the noun. It's on the outside. Pros te te macra skene, or pros te macra skene te de. All right, so notice that the adjective macra is in the attributive position, whereas the demonstrative is in the predicative position. But it all means on this, next to this tent. So this, next to this long tent. Next to this long tent, which is attributive for all intents and purposes. But the point is that in English it's in what we might consider attributive position. But in the way it works in Greek, they put it outside of the grouping. So the idea, again, is next to this long tent, next to the long tent, this one is sort of the thinking. Or next to this one, the long tent. And so rarely, though, it can be used as an attributive modifier. So here you have Haimen ton Peloponnesion hautai nees, right? So these ships of the Peloponnesians, right? So here we have it. So hai is our article. Here's our noun, nees, and then everything is in the middle. This is rare, but it can happen, right? But probably because if it was thrown out here, it might cause confusion in the larger sentence structure. But here, so we have the ships belonging to the Peloponnesians hautai, these ones. Okay, so normally we would expect hautai to be here or here, right? But once in a while, this can happen. And again, it could very well be whatever's on the outside in the rest of the sentence. If hautai was floating around out of this sandwich, it might cause confusion. So for clarity's sake, the rule is lapsed. Okay, now we have, as we have demonstrative adjectives or pronoun acting as adjectives, then we can also have an adverbial form of these demonstratives. So if you want to say in this way, you can say huto or hode, right? So here we have hode, in this way, thus or so. Huto, use huto meaning in this way, or hutos when we have a vowel, in this way. So these two again basically meaning similarly. Whereas a keno, right? A kenos, in that manner. And eje. So here you can see in that place. So this is where ekenos comes from, right? Eje, over there. So it's the adjective for the over there thing. Ekenos, right? So these are the demonstratives then. So this, in this way, can be either huto or hode, or hutos in front of a vowel. And that over there can have in that manner or in that way, and in which is ekenos, and when you're talking about location, in that place, eke. Okay.